So let's get into some of the themes that, as I said, have become the central themes of what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I say to you all the time, as I said in the intro, I'm watching the news constantly, and I either text you sometimes or I'll call you and be like, God, I wish your dad was around because I can't do it that good, certainly, and I don't know anyone else that can skewer stuff in that way. So let's just hit a couple of them. So the religion one. So you already mentioned a little bit about his history with religion. Was he an atheist? Did he describe himself in any specific way related to God?
No, he did not use the term atheist. He felt atheism was as dogmatic as any other ism out there. Lately I've been introduced to what they call the humanist kind of community, which is something I relate to a lot more. I think he would have felt better about that. Sounds like they're not going to have as many meetings and armbands and things like that, which he used to talk about groups, because his thing
there's less Kool-Aid, I think.
Yeah, he felt any group of people, you get groupthink. And then where does the individual thinking, happen in that situation? So that always worried him. I think he named himself mostly as an agnostic. Obviously, he didn't believe in the man in the sky with the beard thing. It's not like he was thinking that was a possibility. But he had a deep sense of oneness with the universe. He loved astronomy. He loved that idea of looking up and, that feeling you get when you look up and like, Jesus, we're just a speck here. Yeah. And yet there's something about that being a speck that expands us at the same time. So there was something around that. He was a man who dropped acid in the 60s and had some transcendent experiences about that. And it talked to me about being high and having an experience where he realized that he really was at one with everything, including the old tennis shoe in the gutter, and that he realized that that everything was him and he was everything. And from that moment on, he said he felt safe because he knew that no matter what he encountered in life, he was only encountering a version of himself. Huh. So that's
pretty spiritual stuff.
Yeah, you could put it in that box, spiritual, and you could talk about it from a brain science way and say, okay, maybe there's things in the brain that makes us feel that way or whatever it is. But it is an experience that changes your worldview and changes how you encounter your life and other people. Yeah. And I think that did that for him.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of his because when I think of it, I think of this sort of anti-religion, the rants that he would go on about the church and religion. And how much of it was just not even about religion specifically, but just about authoritarianism? Or about control? Was that really what it was about? It wasn't about religion.
Well, I won't speak for him, and I don't really know at all what motivated him to do those bits. I never was privy to that part of his process. He would sit me down during the HBO taping and let me see it just the way everyone else saw it. Right. I never knew his process. But sure, I think if you looked at all of his material and sifted through it and analyzed it, I think authoritarianism would be a huge aspect to it all, that anyone out, my dad never made it through a single institution he encountered. He got kicked out of everything. Elementary school, junior high, high school, did not finish high school, 9th grade, dropout, then joined the Air Force early, promoted and demoted. I've got a little piece of paper of his that has all the listings of the promotions and the demotions that he had in the Air Force. So got kicked out of that, and then ultimately, became this straight suit, clean-cut comic, and even that conservative form that he had to be in order to be a successful comic, because his dream was to be in the movies eventually, that felt too restrictive and authoritarian for him, and he rebelled against that too, ultimately. Yeah. He was always looking, he talked about the line. He always, a comic's job is to find the line and to cross it. And I think that's what that's about, is anyone telling you can't do something, all right, let's cross it and really see what we can do on the other side of that. Yeah, so let's just back up for a second, because you mentioned that at one time your dad was this sort of, he wasn't conservative comic, but he was buttoned down, kind of
he was sort of
looked like
that,
everyone else in the
Yeah, I was going to say he was that generic, whatever that
For
was.
sure.
But then had a moment that it all changed. Do you know what it was personally at that moment, or was it purely
It
like
was LSD.
It was the drug.
I mean, here's the deal.
Yeah.
On the inside, he was already the other person. He had been smoking weed since he was 14. His politics were a little more conservative growing up. His mom was a Republican. Whatever they call a
None
social,
of it means anything anymore relative to how.
but
we are now, right?
a fiscal, whatever.
Fiscal conservative, social
liberal, right? Exactly. And when he met Jack Burns, his first thing was he was a comedy duo with Jack Burns. Jack Burns was way left progressive, and my dad was more moderate guy. And Jack took him and pulled him and taught him about everything. And then, of course, Lenny Bruce, blew his mind too.
Yeah.
So on the inside, Dad was a radical. He was hanging out with musicians in the village. He was one of them. But he had to put on this exterior in order to build this career, because in his mind he really did. He had this Danny Kaye plan, and he wanted to be like Danny Kaye in the movies. And he felt the way to do that was TV and these nightclubs. I mean, really, there were no comedy clubs back then.
Yeah.
You were doing the Playboy Club or the Copacabana, and you were opening for, God knows.
The Four Seasons.
Who knows? Yeah, I mean, yeah.
If you were lucky, it was a Four Seasons.
Engelbert Humperdinck,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he opened for the Supremes in Las Vegas in
Yeah.
'69. It's like, so.
Which really, think how crazy that is. Like, you can say it and we don't really absorb what that means, but your dad, even before his transformation, opening the Supremes, it seems so bizarre.
Yeah, and that was a great gig for him. He was making a lot of money in that gig.
Yeah, I think you tell a story where he got fired from that gig.
He got fired for that gig, yeah. He was making more money than he ever had made, and he said the word, what was it? Is it ass in that one, or shit? I think he said shit. That he got fired twice in Vegas.
Ass or shit.
Yeah, ass or shit. And Red Fox is down the street doing XXX stuff, of course. So, but this was the thing. He realized he was entertaining the parents of the people that he was hanging out with.
Right.
And here's like another part of his outsider status too, was he was 30 in 1967. So he was already too old for the hippies and all the kids that were going through that, because they were all early 20s, but he wasn't relating to their parents either.
Sure.
So he was this interesting bridge between those two generations, but related obviously much more to the younger generation.